What is up, guys? Welcome back to FitBodySecrets, where my mission is to bring you guys motivation, inspiration, and a ton of tips to help you guys on your fat loss journey or your fitness journey. And I said fat loss because today's topic is actually talking about fat loss. And I'm talking about the side of fat loss that a lot of people don't talk about. And myself, I fall into this trap as well. I put on my social media tons of tips and resources for you guys in terms of making it simple for you to lose fat. Hey, focus on these things. These are what you should be focusing on to see fat loss. These are what you should be focusing on if you want to live a healthy lifestyle. But what often gets neglected are the things that are going through a person's brain and through their head when they're actually trying to make those changes. And I'm going to be honest, it's actually what holds them back from making changes and seeing results. So today, I wanted to take some time to talk about the mental aspect of fat loss that a lot of people don't consider or don't think about or even don't validate for themselves. They hold those thoughts in because they feel uncomfortable about talking about it. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to, things like, maybe for instance, maybe nobody else in your house is making changes. Maybe you're the only person that is working on your health and your fitness, and you feel kind of singled out, and the whole family has to work around your new diet plan, or you feel guilty for that. Things like maybe you feel like you've tried so many things in the past and it seems like nothing is working for you. And you're kind of feeling a little bit hopeless at this point. And maybe you've even labeled yourself a yo-yo dieter. You kind of make jokes about it. Maybe the influences of other people continue to stop you and hold you back. You're really dialed in when you're, at work and you're by yourself and everything is just kind of on your own time, but then you're around other people and you feel like the influences and judgments of others drives your decisions. These are all mental battles that people are going to face on their fat loss journey that need to be navigated. How about things like watching other people find success? You see other people, being successful at following something. So you think that maybe you should try that, and maybe that even makes you feel bad about yourself because you're not seeing results fast enough, or maybe you question, why is it so hard for you? Maybe that leads you to second guessing what you're doing. Maybe you start to think, maybe I should be following something different. And maybe you just started something new, not even giving it a chance to work because you're so distracted by somebody else's results. And it's really, I think the main thing is like there's so much conflicting information out there that you don't really know where to start. How about maybe just the whole thought of being just completely burned out and like you're just tired of like always focusing on fat loss, fat loss, fat loss. You've been doing it for so long. At this point, you're literally just burned out from thinking about food and exercise and calories and food choices, and you're just tired of it. And you just want to be able to live your life. And maybe that just means staying exactly the same. Maybe right now you're having a really hard time because you're comfortable. Like you're really comfortable with the lifestyle that you're living. And you know that in order for you to lose fat, it's going to require some changes that might be uncomfortable to you, letting go of some things. Even just the overall effort around making changes in your life, right? Like dealing with things like hunger and cravings and all of that stuff, making more time for meal prep, the actual physical changes do require you to have a mental change in the way you approach your life every single day. So all of this stuff can be really hard, and a lot of people don't talk about it. Instead, they just say, well, I'm just not committed. I'm not disciplined enough. There's too much going on. And today I want to kind of talk to you guys about the 5 I feel like are the most common things that I see people struggle with in their fat loss journey. And I know all of those things are things that likely you probably could raise your hand or nod your head to that you have struggled with, because I know in my own fat loss journey and with a lot of my clients, I go through a lot of these things with them, a lot of these scenarios, and we do work through them. So I want to go over the 5 that I feel like are holding most people back from actually seeing their plan through. And by the way, if you don't have a nutrition plan that works for you, not a plug for coaching, but there is a plug here for you to watch my workshop that I just recently held on Monday. Fat loss. What did I call it? Fat loss simplified workshop. I had to think about that. I was getting a little tongue tied. Where I do break down the 3 very important things that you guys need to be successful. So if you've been distracted by so many other things and you want to get a copy of that replay, just shoot me a message. I'll make sure I put the link to that in my show notes. But yeah, I think that it's really important for you guys to take a look at these 5 things and hopefully find ways to navigate through them, because this is what's going to change you from staying stuck where you're at to making the next step to seeing the progress that you're after. Okay, so the first thing that I wrote down here, and these are in no specific order, but I did try and order them in the way I feel like they're going to probably show up for you. The first one I wrote down was just living in the past. And this can show up in a number of ways. Maybe you have a vision of yourself like when you were like super lean or you felt really confident in your body and you want to get back there. And you're like, I just wish I can get back there. It was like so easy then. You think back to, and you're like, I don't know why the diet worked then. It's not working now. You guys, you have to realize that your lifestyle now is likely very different than it was then. So things might have been a little bit easier for you then, right? Maybe you were much more active. Maybe you didn't have kids and a full-time job. Maybe you were single and you could, it was easier for you. You weren't eating out as often. You didn't have to worry about things. You were just kind of in a different place in your life. And so living in the past and like looking to be your best past self is holding you back from being your best future self. Living in the past is also living in the beliefs that you have built on yourself over the years and years and years of chronic dieting and trying to lose weight. So if you're somebody that struggled with your weight for so long, all you have is all these failed attempts that are just keep racking up another one, another one, another one. And you keep living in this past. And what's happening is that every single time you jump into something new, you already have this belief that it's not going to work for you because all of the other shit you've tried hasn't worked for you. Maybe you've actually found success, but then you regained weight. So now you have this belief that, well, every time I lose weight, I'm going to regain it again. So you're living in this past belief of what is either achievable or what is holding you back from making progress rather than living in what you should be right now, which is in the present. So what I want you guys to do with this first step, and I'm going to kind of give you a solution to each of these things as we go, is if you're somebody that finds yourself living in past beliefs in terms of what you're able to achieve, or maybe living to search for, or you're searching for chasing a past version of yourself, let's just put all that stuff away and realize that we can't go backwards. And everything in our past has, in some way, shaped, or form, taught us something that we can use to create a different future. And you can start today by creating a new plan and a new version and a new story for yourself. If you allow yourself to just start with a clean slate, it's like starting from scratch and learning how to use all the things you know from the past and move forward with them. And maybe that is reaching out to somebody to help you dial things in a different way because you have a lot of beliefs about yourself that you don't really know how to navigate. Okay. But we got to get out of living in the past and recognize that like living there isn't changing your present situation. Thinking about what you've done in the past or what you were in the past isn't changing where you're at today. So instead, let's just create a new base. Like today is your new base. Where are you at today? Actually sit down and think about where you're at today and where you want to be. And don't envision a past version of yourself. Envision a future life for yourself. What does your life look like in the future of you living in your best self? And not just your weight, but also like the things you're doing and the things you value and that kinds of stuff as well. Okay, so that's number one, living in the past. Let's let go of it. Number two, speaking of letting go, is I wrote down hard to let go. And I wrote down very basic notes. Really, I didn't write down many notes. Full transparency. I'm supposed to be on vacation this week, and I am on vacation staycation, but I really like podcasting, and I had this on my mind today. So, and what I mean by hard to let go is I think that a lot of us right now are very comfortable with our normal life. There's things that we do on a daily basis, even if they're not serving us for that future self we want to become. They're comfortable. It can be specific foods. It can be certain nutrition habits. Maybe you don't cook at home. Maybe you eat out a lot. Maybe you like social eating. Maybe you like drinking alcohol. Maybe you don't want to worry about tracking your food. Maybe there's things that you're doing right now that just feel comforting to you that you don't want to change. Maybe you're not working out. Most of you guys are working out already. But it's hard to let go of the things that keep you comfortable in life. There's certain things that we have right now that are kind of keeping us happy in the moment. which is good, right? We want to be happy in the moment. But oftentimes, what we're not realizing is they're not really fulfilling happiness. They're just maybe numbing a specific situation or a feeling that we're chasing. And then we're actually losing out on the long-term happiness that we could create by getting a little bit uncomfortable and changing those things. And I can relate to this, and in fact, I know in my own personal journey right now, there's a lot of places that I'm not going to call it self-sabotage where I've made decisions and they've led me further away from my goals than towards them. And that's a hard thing to face. But when I actually tell myself, okay, right now, this might feel like the right decision because it feels comfortable and safe, it's actually holding me back long term. And I actually have proof of that because usually after I engage in that behavior or I give in to that comfort, I feel worse about it because I know it's not in line with who I want to be and what I want to achieve. So you have to be okay with recognizing that you're going to have to let go of some things. And you can call it sacrifice, but I think that what you end up sacrificing isn't actually it's not something that's actually that special, and it's holding you back from the sacrifice, or it's sacrificing what you actually really want, which is really special, which is like you want to be more confident in your body. You want to finally put like these thoughts away and you want to be able to feel really good about yourself. And by giving in to these little bits of comfort, you're actually holding on to those and letting yourself, or not letting yourself, become that person that you want to become and be excited. And I think a lot of that comes down to number one, which is living in the past. You have a lot of beliefs about yourself. You don't think that it's possible for you to change. Maybe you don't even believe that you're going to be happier if you change. All of these things can kind of lead you to stay stuck in the comfort zone because it is unknown. You don't know the future. We can't predict that. Now, with my methods with fat loss, I do know we can create a predictable plan for you, but you can't predict how happy you're going to be. And that's why it's important that the way you choose to lose weight is something that actually is exciting to you and enjoyable to you. Number three. Okay. Well, no, wait, let me go back to number two because I didn't go over how are we going to get through this. How are we going to break through the barrier of getting out of the comfort zone? Okay. You guys have seen that whole like comfort zone and like where your results are is like outside of the circle. Here's the reality is, as much as I want to be like, get comfortable with the uncomfortable and give you this like just do it like attitude, it doesn't really work that way. I think that can work really well like for a moment, but it's a lot harder to stay committed to that kinds of an attitude. What I would suggest for all of my clients, and I do suggest, is when we're looking at making changes to our life, you could probably make a list of like 5 or 6 different things that will dramatically change your results. And of those 5 or 6 things, you can probably pinpoint the 1 or 2 things that you really need to focus on. And sometimes it's not changing. It might be choosing one thing, but it might not be going all in on that every single day. So let me give you an easy example. Let's just say that you are somebody that eats out like on the regular 5 or 6 times a week. Like, that's like easy for you. It's convenient. The kids like it. And just cutting that out cold turkey is not going to be easy for you with your schedule. Maybe the first step is when you go out to eat, you're choosing a place that you can look for a grilled protein and a veggie, and you're bringing it home and you can add a starchy carb on the side. So now you're controlling what you're eating. And maybe now you're only choosing once or twice a week where you're going out and having something more indulgent that you wouldn't have at home. Like maybe it's sushi or pizza or something that you just typically wouldn't have at the house. That could be a great example. Maybe you're struggling to track your food and that that's something that you need to create as a habit of getting into a food tracking habit. Maybe to start, maybe you're just going to commit to only eating 5 times a day. And now all you're doing is you're not tracking anything, but now you've committed to like putting a check mark. I've eaten 5 times a day and that's it. That's a start in tracking your food. Maybe the next step is you're actually writing it down or tracking that food somewhere. So like it's little things like that you can do to create some momentum without completely making yourself uncomfortable. Okay, so we want to think about effort here. All right, number 3, and this is a big one. Okay, and I talked about this when I talked about the things you guys face, is like people pleasing. All right, like When you decide to make changes, especially if you're not a single person with nobody else in your house, it can be difficult because you're worried about how your changes are going to impact other people around you. And you're afraid of saying no to people bringing you things. There's so many things with people pleasing that end up showing up that hold people back. And this is a huge mental battle. Somebody brings you, something for your birthday and it's food related. And you're like, "Oh, I don't want to say no. They brought me this for my birthday." Well, sometimes like, or you don't want to waste it, like you're that person. Like maybe sometimes it's okay to say like thank you, but like maybe give it to somebody else, that's just an example. It could be anything though. So people pleasing is a big problem, and it really is. And I'm guilty of this as well. You want to make everybody else happy, but by doing that you're making yourself miserable. And you're just like, "Oh, I'll just get through it." Like you don't want to change the nutrition at the dinner table because it's going to affect everybody else, when in reality, like, you can still make a meal that your whole family can enjoy that fits your plan, if your plan is flexible enough. And if that's too much work for you, that you don't want to have that stress, you should also be okay with like, all right, I don't have to eat what everybody else is in order to be able to enjoy myself, because I have these goals and I'm going to eat this differently. So, but people pleasing is a huge one. You've got to learn how to be able to say no. You got to be able to face those demons that everybody has of how it's going to upset other people. And I always like to remind people is that you are not in control of anybody else's thoughts or feelings. And it is not your responsibility to change anybody else's thoughts or feelings. The only person's thoughts and feelings that you can control are your own. And focusing on anybody else's does not do anything but distract you from that. So what is actually truly going to make you happy? And when you feel guilty about something that you're changing, ask yourself, is this really affecting them? Or is it their own issues and insecurities that is affecting them? And that's what usually is the problem. Okay. So people pleasing, quick tips. Okay. Number one, by pleasing everybody else, you're not pleasing anybody because you're just making yourself unhappy. And in reality, what you're eating or what you're choosing shouldn't matter to anybody else. Uh, Making sure, number two, you feel comfortable saying no and speaking up for yourself. When it comes to fat loss and nutrition changes, what I always like to remind people is, if fat loss wasn't your goal, if you were just choosing something at a restaurant by preference, would anybody judge you? So if everybody else at the table was eating sushi and you don't like fish, would you feel guilty saying no? Likely not, right? So it's the same thing here. Why because of the reason do we have to feel guilty about changing something? If a food preference allows you to say no or yes, why not let your goals dictate whether you say no or yes? Okay, so just by thinking about things differently, you can kind of become more of an individual and empower yourself to not worry about what other people are perceiving as, not the right choice for you. Who's to say what the right choice is for you? Only you can dictate that. All right. Number four, I wrote down looking at what others are doing. And this has been something that has been on my mind a lot. And it's not just looking at your friends in the CrossFit class, or, what your neighbor's doing and how they lost 100 pounds or whatever it is, or 15 pounds, how they got super shredded. It's also in the influencer world as well. You see people online now promoting different diet trends and different workout programs and different exercises and different food restrictions and all these things. And they're telling you like, hey, this is what I did. And those things can be confusing and distracting, and also lead you to feel worse about yourself, especially if you are trying to lose weight and then you see somebody else making fast progress. And now you're like, oh, why are they getting progress so fast? Maybe I should follow what they're doing. So we always have to remind ourselves that our journeys are not the same as everybody else. Our bodies are different, our lifestyles are different. And a lot of times when you're looking at what these influencers are promoting, you don't know what that person's history is and what else they might be doing. In fact, a lot of them are often lying. I hate to say it, but they are. They might say they're following the carnivore diet, but they're probably following the carnivore diet maybe 50 or 60% of the time and neglecting the weekends and their free days and things like that. So there's a lot of things out there that you guys don't recognize. And you don't know how a person feels in the journey. So maybe you do see somebody making really fast progress, but in that process of making progress, maybe they're absolutely miserable. Maybe they're like not eating out at all. Maybe they're like avoiding, having meals with their family. Maybe they're really feeling like they're hungry all the time. Maybe they're killing themselves with cardio. Whatever it is, you don't know what that person's doing. So It's really hard. I think this even shows up when you're like trying to lose weight and you feel like everybody else at the table is just like able to eat whatever they want. They don't have to think about food. And you're the one that's always thinking about food. And that can be really stressful. Right. So I think that looking at others is just a distraction from what you should be focusing on for you. It's kind of like in the sports world, looking at the leaderboard or looking at the training that other people are doing. That's not going to help you get any better. The only thing that's going to help you get better is figuring out what you need to change in your own nutrition journey. And yes, sometimes it can be helpful to get some tips from other people, but most of the times it's just a distraction. What you're better off doing is not a plug for coaching, but finding a professional or finding somebody that can help you go through navigating, creating a plan for you, whether it's a professional nutritionist or maybe it's just somebody that you trust. Maybe it's an online program or whatnot. So, how do we get over this looking at other people scenarios? Well, I think number one, it's like just staying in your own lane. Okay. I think you have to have full trust in what you're doing, which, as I mentioned, making sure that you feel like the plan you have is actually going to work for you, or you're at least going to give it enough time to work for you. And that's why I do recommend making sure that your fat loss plan does have metrics. Like, how are you tracking things to ensure that if you need to make an adjustment, you can adjust things? I think when people hear tracking, they automatically go to macros, and that's not really the case. There's more to tracking than just macros, right? You can track a number of ways without tracking your macros, but we have to have some trackable data in order to be able to get you to make some results to happen, or to get results to happen. That's how we can adjust things. So making sure that you have a method that you feel confident is trackable and adjustable, and that it's enjoyable, that you can actually enjoy the process, and that it feels authentic to you, that these changes that you're making are something that you can stick to long term, and not letting yourself fall victim to all the sirens that are going to be out there that are going to kind of distract you. You want to stay focused on your own journey. Okay. Um, and then the last thing I'm going to talk about today is probably the most important one. Okay. Um, and it's going to kind of encompass a few different things. I'm going to kind of probably add on to it because it made me think of like other things that happened with this same scenario. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm not sure if you can see this, but I have this freaking piece of hair right here and it's like sticking out, and I didn't do my hair before I came on here, guys. Full transparency. I just was like, I wanted to get my podcast started and I didn't really get jazzied up for this. Anyways, so the last one that I'm going to talk about today is the perfect time scenario, or like always restarting because something comes up. It's kind of both, right? You're in this hamster wheel of like looking for the perfect time when like you don't have stress, you don't have a vacation plan, you don't have a social thing going on, you don't have the summertime. It's just there's never going to be a perfect time to change. You're just going to have to rip the band-aid off and change. And when I say that, it's you've got to remove this like all or nothing thinking about change. It's not, okay, I'm committed today to like tracking my macros and my calories and not eating out and meal planning and prepping and working out 6 days a week and hitting my steps and like drinking my water, and I'm going to get my fiber and I'm going to make sure I'm doing it. Like, you can do so. Yes, do all of those things matter? Can all of them benefit your fat loss journey? Absolutely. But like, let's focus on the big marbles and learn how to actually get through life while maintaining fat loss. Like, and that's what happens whenever life hits you with something. It's no longer, okay, we're learning to pivot. We're learning how to maintain our fat loss, because at the end of the day, when your fat loss journey is over, life goes on and you've got to be able to maintain it. And that means that the changes you've made need to be manageable in your life long term. So if your fat loss plan is kind of taken out of context of your life, you're never going to be able to maintain it, because your life is always going to revolve around your body, not your body just fitting into your life, if that makes sense. So we need to stop looking for the perfect time. You can start right now, right today. You could literally, your very next meal, decide to make a change and you're already starting the momentum going. But that mindset is very hard for people. And the reason is that most people are so results focused. And if the results aren't coming like that, they assume that something isn't working. And that's usually not the case. But the more they wait for perfection, they're literally standing at the starting line. Whereas if you just take a little step here and there, you will eventually reach your goals. So you have to stop focusing so much on looking for the perfect time to start, because it's actually holding you back from making the fastest progress in your life, because the fastest progress in your life is going to be dictated by what you can actually handle in your life. And that's likely not going to change no matter what season you're in. Okay. So it's really important to kind of get out of this all or nothing perfect scenario situation, because your body just doesn't work that way. In fact, your body just adapts to life. It's really all that happens. And even your eating habits have become an adaptation to your lifestyle. They really have. And it's changing those things and creating a new normal that you have to do. And so that's what I feel like. I feel like a lot of people are struggling with. So before I end on that, like I said, I'm going to give you a little tip for each one. Talking about waiting for the perfect time. Here's my tip for you. Okay. So rather than waiting for the perfect time, as I've kind of went over some different things here today, maybe think about the one thing that you know that you could commit to, and like focusing on that, and you can do it like wherever you're at, whenever, no matter what happens, you can always that. Some people would call that like an anchor. It's like, no matter what, this is always going to be there for me. It might be as simple as like you get protein at every meal, because that can pretty much happen for most people 90% of the time. Like it could be as simple as you are going to track your food, because even if it's a bunch of shitty food, like your phone's always with you anyways, and you're likely on Instagram or YouTube or whatever it is, you can do that, right? Like, so whatever it is you need to start, like try and find a way to get started on one change, and don't have any expectations on the results just yet. Instead, have the expectations of proving to yourself that you can do something hard no matter what life throws at you. Now that you've created that belief, now we can start to create some expectations, because now we can create some change to those things. We can make some adjustments to get your results to change. So hopefully you guys got some value out of this episode today. Guys, I got some exciting things down the pipeline. If you were not already, like I mentioned, my fat loss frameworks. See, I'm already throwing out the words that I shouldn't be throwing out just yet, because it hasn't been released yet. If you missed my fat loss simplified workshop that I mentioned earlier, and you would like to access it, just hit me a message. I'll put my information in the show notes for you. Because I would love for you guys to watch that. I've got some exciting things going on that for those of you guys, there's an offer in there for those of you guys that watch the Fat Loss Frameworks workshop. So stay tuned, because after my vacation, I am excited for a new program that I'm going to be launching. So with all that, guys, I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the next episode.